Good evening, everybody, and welcome to England.
Well, that's where we are.
That's where we are.
We are broadcasting
We're not
live.
going very far this
We are
time.
broadcasting live from England.
From the vineyards, yeah, kind of. But yeah, it's lovely to see you all. This is going to be a fun little trip around, and I think what would be really great is while we're going around on this tour, why don't you pop in the chat about some of the vineyards that you've visited and some of the English wines that you've drunk, because I'm sure you're all the kind of people who like to go out and get into the vineyards and get out to see things. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm going to take my watch off because my watch keeps buzzing and it's going to annoy everyone. Everyone's going like, "What's is Jamie checking the time? Is he done already?" No, it's not going to be good for anyone. So yeah, so we've got 6 wines from 6 different places as we kind of tour around the country. Yes, finished work for the day. Wine and glass. So we finished work for the day.
nearly.
Kind of. So yeah, so lots of cool English wines, some things, and we've tried to do lots of different styles as we go through. You know, there's not 2 wines are the same, but we've also tried to be quintessentially English. You know, what we think England produces, and I know there's a big thing. You know, English sparkling wine does a great job. It does really well. It's got, it does really well here. It's got international recognition. I was judging at the IWC yesterday, and they were talking about how these wineries are trying to import out to Japan and places like that. Now there's getting some real recognition. But sometimes the still wines just get left a little in their shadow sometimes, because we talk about these big sparkling names that people see loads of, and fingers crossed we'll have a chance to enlighten you with some places that you may go, yeah, I knew Kent did wine because I knew Essex did wine because I'm on the online wine tasting club.
Yeah.
But as we go to wine number 1, which we should get in our glass, we go to Cornwall.
We're going down to Cornwall, and there are some quite well-known vineyards down in Cornwall. Perhaps one of the most famous ones is probably Camel Valley. While they say they're in Cornwall, they do also get an awful lot of their grapes from Essex, which is a slightly less known fact. But it has a beautiful vineyard with a nice terrace you can go and sit out on, and they get some of their more sort of fresh, cooler sort of grapes from local in Cornwall. The wonderful thing about Cornwall is it's quite warm, as we all know. We like to go down there. The less wonderful thing about it is often wet. Especially compared to the sort of the southeast of the country, it does get quite a bit of rain, and that is a bit of a problem in this country because rain basically gives disease in the vineyard. And you probably heard people talking about the fact that you can go through the vineyards and spray them with all of these chemicals to try to keep the grapes from rotting. That's not ideal, is it?
You know what I'm going to do? It's not ideal, but I'm going to pause you for a minute.
Okay.
So people can put their tasting notes in.
Oh, yeah. Okay, let's do that.
For those who have been with us before, here's your Slido. So you can scan the QR code or go to slido.com and put the code in, or go to towtc.co.uk/taste. And here you can start popping your tasting notes in for the Sauvignon Blanc from Polgoon.
Yeah, well, so I mean, Sauvignon Blanc is it's not the grape that comes to mind first of all when you're talking about English wines. It's where does it come from? Basically down in Bordeaux, isn't it? Which is a bit warmer.
Yeah, and I'm going to go back to my story of stories that I always tell these stories. That Sauvignon Blanc for me is the grape that really takes typicity of place.
Yeah.
You'll have a Sauvignon Blanc from Sancerre, tastes very grassy, very minerally. A Sauvignon Blanc from Bordeaux, a little bit richer, a little bit rounder style. A Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand is all grapefruit and gooseberries. And then you go to either Chile or California and you get more tropical notes. So not all Sauvignon Blancs are created equal. And you can't just go, oh, I like Sauvignon Blanc or I don't like Sauvignon Blanc. It really is about where it comes from and the style it goes.
Yeah.
But, as you get your tasting notes in, I just think this is
just like an English hedgerow, isn't it? It's just mad.
It smells like English summertime, doesn't it?
It does.
It's very English,
elderflower,
through the countryside,
floral flavors, and it's very Sauvignon-like. Yeah, there's a core of it in there, but it's so different, and it's very, very refreshing, kind of on the nose, isn't it?
It is, and it's not as powerful as a lot of Sauvignon Blancs from other places. And that's neither, for me, a good thing nor a bad thing. No. It's just its own style. So this is Polgoon. So we're down in Penzance here. So we're a fair trek away from the rest of civilization for wines to get backwards and forwards. But because of the rain and all that kind of stuff, they do have a little bit of level of protection.
A secret, yes,
so
they do indeed. In fact, just while we're talking about Cornwall, we've got Kathy is absolutely right. Camel Valley, it has a royal appointment. In fact, King Charles is allegedly a very big fan of Camel Valley and has been spotted drinking that on numerous occasions. I think their sparklings are excellent. And Richard has been to Camel Valley as well. It is a great place to visit. It's so lovely down there, and not too far away from places like oh my goodness, where's Bin 2 based? Padstow, which of course is it's perhaps home to one of the country's smallest vineyards as well, which is what one of our friends, Mike Boyne, has planted up some Solaris and is basically in his back garden and is doing things on an even smaller scale than we did, which is brilliant. So yeah, but the secret of this is quite funny, really, because I mean, I think it came out of desperation. These were basically fruit farmers, and they wanted to sort of start diversifying. And they started off. They got a bit of consultation in. They got in Sam Lindo from Camel Valley to come and give them some advice on what to plant and where. And of course, they had a great couple of years. The wines went down really well, and then everything went completely tits up for 2 years. They had terrible weather.
Is that a technical winemaking term?
It's a viticultural term. Tits
viticultural.
up. So yeah, it is.
What's that? Tartarics in turmoil.
Tartarics in turmoil. That I like.
You're going to keep that.
Good thinking. But what I've got here is a little aerial photo of the vineyard. And you can probably spot their solution to this, because it's not the nice romantic side of things, but you've got to do what you've got to do to protect your crop. And the thing about spraying them is, obviously, the less you spray it, the better. But you've got reality. You don't want to lose your grapes. If you put your grapes into a polytunnel, then you don't have to spray them anywhere near as much. You keep a lot of that moisture away from the vines. And so it gets a much nicer, warmer environment. They've been winning some real good awards for this wine. I think their branding looks good too.
I think it's crisp, it's clean, the branding's nice, the wine's good, it's fresh, it's delicious, and I think for the first wine of the night, I think it's just a very kind of let's get into a wine tasting session.
Quite right, and it's just great to see that you can grow Sauvignon Blanc in England, and it does exactly what he says, which is takes on its kind of local. Sort of attributes, which is cool. Let's have a look at the tasting notes. Yeah, it's a very, very pale colour, isn't it? It's incredibly pale.
The colour, when I first poured something like, have I got that, or have we got water where we've been testing film? Because it is very, very light. But you think that, and you go, it's much more powerful than you think from the colour. It's got some nice richness. It's got you guys have got the tasting notes at home. Fresh fruit. It's this very kind of light, fresh lemon, that zippiness, that crisp. It's got pear. It's got a little bit of almost like baked apple in there. And I think this is just very, as we're coming into the spring, and I'll say this, and then
there's some lovely notes here.
Yeah, I'll say it's great as we're coming into the spring, and then it'll be like 3 degrees for the next week. Now I mention it, But this is, I think, a great wine just to sit out in the garden when we get a little bit more patio weather. It's a good little barbecue outsidey, share with friends, and we talk sometimes about that quaffable patio Grigio kind of thing. I think if you want to take a little step up from that and support, local English vineyard. This is that kind of bottle, just to, have a case of it at home, have it nice, cold, chilled in the garden, and everyone's a winner. I'm, correct me if I'm wrong at home, but I don't think there's nothing to dislike about this, is there?
No, it's, and it has got length. It does go on for a bit. It's got a bit of complexity in there. And as you can see from the tasting notes, and I think that's wonderful. I think we should talk very briefly as well, because this is a very young wine. This is a 2022 vintage wine. 2022 is probably going to go down as well. It's certainly one of the top 2 vintages in the last 10 years, if not in all time in England. It was just such a warm year. It was wonderful. We had a slightly cool start to it, which meant we dodged a lot of the frost. There was hardly any frost damage in the country last year, and it's it then gave us that baking hot summer. We all saw it, the 40-degree heat. In fact, there were people in this country now who are having to water their vines for the first time ever, which is practically unheard of. So it was a really baking hot year. And
the warmest one, so 18 was probably the only one before that had that
exactly,
level of that to be able to make these rich, riper styles of wine.
Yeah, and to ripen up grapes which don't normally ripen in this country. So yeah, it's I think they're doing a really wonderful job. They also do make a lot of cider as well. So that's what they did to keep them afloat in those 2 years with the terrible weather. They went back to their roots and they made some cider. So they're very good cider makers too. So yeah, Polgoon, it's just down in Penzance. It's just very close.
I'm just saying, I've not read the back label, but it's like everything I say. Our Sauvignon Blanc has its own unique characteristics.
It does.
It's different to a French or New Zealand Sauvignon. It can only be described as wonderfully Cornish.
Excellent.
There we are. Like that. I like that a lot.
I like it. It's got a long finish.
Hangs out for a while. Yeah, it does
hang out. Kathy has been to Rothley Vineyard in Leicestershire. That's not one I know of, but if I can be forgiven for that if it's only about an acre. And the winery was the garage. Well, that is it. The garage east movement for winemaking. It's a great thing. I think it's great to know that you can make wine on quite a nice small scale. But yeah, I haven't been to any that far north. I was on a course with the maker of wine from the Rydale vineyard in North Yorkshire, which is very, very far north. And you sit there thinking, my God, I don't know how you could possibly ripen things up in that far north in the country. But in a year like 2022, absolutely.
Yeah, so, and I think there's a great comment there about Loire. It does have that kind of like grassy herbaceousness that you find in maybe more kind of like, not so much that Sancerre steeliness, but kind of like those softer, more beginner Loire valleys that have that little bit of greenness, that little bit of stoniness. But yeah, I think it's an absolutely delicious one. And what I think is interesting about this, and we're going to taste some different things as we go through, and how plantings have changed in the UK. You look 10, 12 years ago, and you can probably date this better than I can with your winemaking stuff. A lot of the grapes that were planted to be safe. It was safe. Yeah. We're going to bring a German hybrid over because we know it will ripen. We know when we get some grapes and we shall get some wine, regardless of the quality. And I mean this in the night. I'm not knocking anybody, but that's kind of how a lot of English winemaking was. It's like, we're going to make some wine. This is the only
it's more of a surprise that we can make anything.
We can guarantee we can do it. So we're now getting to the stage that people are being selective, not only of the grapes that they're growing, but the particular clones. We're seeing vineyards that are planting some Chardonnay to make still wines, different Chardonnay to make sparkling wines. And I think that's absolutely fantastic that we're getting to that level in the UK that it's not, hey, let's plant, let's grow, let's hope for the best.
Yeah.
There's some real care and level and some real thought that's going into the selection of what's being planted. There's been so much learning over the last decade.
And I think one of the big problems is that you, in a great year like 2022, you'd almost thought you'd been mad not to be planting Chardonnay and Pinot Noir everywhere. That's quite clearly, the two highest value grapes, or perhaps even a bit of Sauvignon Blanc, and not so many of these things which are less commonly known. They're just a bit harder to sell. But then you get a year like 2021. Right. And where they made the yields were half as much. We made practically half as much wine 1 year ago as we did this year, which is this last year.
I think there's also another thing. But let's get wine number 2 in the glass as I'm yabbering on about things. There is the thought that you could turn around and go, all right, Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, we can grow that, we can make loads of it, we can make loads of money. But there's other countries that have done that in the past, isn't there? There's you take Italy, for example, yeah. A lot of northern, and like in Tuscany, they got all over excited about the Bordeaux varietals, didn't they? And they went in and they planted a bunch of Cab, a bunch of Merlot, a bit of Cabernet Franc to try and follow that Bordeaux trend. And we talk about the UK sometimes about some of the Chardonnay being Chablis-esque, and we could do something like Burgundy. But if everybody just goes and plants the same thing, and you go, and that's what I like about, you go to southern Italy, there's such diversity. There's, all these little grapes that you only find there, and you go to a different place, like, here's our local grapes. We still need to have things that, we strive for. We don't want to be copying Chablis. We don't want to be copying it. We want to be our own style.
I mean, I wouldn't mind too much if we were copying Chablis because it's quite nice. But yes, we should be coming up with our own things as well.
You know, stylistically, let's do what we're good at. And I think we're quite good at this grape.
Yeah, we are. And it's a really cracking grape in those years like 2021, which it was a bit of a git of a year, frankly, compared to it. And this is which sorts the wheat from the chaff of the winemakers who can really still do what they want, who can make a delicious drink in a trickier year.
Yeah. So these guys, so this
Martin's Vineyard, the Isle of Scilly. Oh, that sounds great.
So let's slide the tasting notes on.
Yep.
So this is Newhall Vineyard, and for those who have been with us for a little while, we've done a couple of things with these guys. We did that Barron's Lane Red in one of our tastings previously. But these guys have been around. Well, the first plantings in the area were 1120. So not this morning, not when you rolled in. 1120. But the vineyard as it is as Newhall is 1969. It was planted. First vintage in 1972.
In fact, I did pop down and visit them last year. I'm not going to give you the full sort of interview and everything like that. You can go back and watch the. But it's just idyllic, isn't it? Just look at that. It's absolutely beautiful. And it's a really great part of the country to be growing grapes in. Yeah. It's low, it's on the south facing slope down towards the River Crouch, and it's protected.
So these guys, if you follow them on Instagram, you're out and you're not allowed to bet. But they just there's a lot of vineyards out there that have vineyard dogs. Yeah, there's books of vineyard dogs. These guys have a vineyard sheep, okay? And because we all love a good story, you got to guess what his name is. Put it in the chat. We'll tell you at the end of this tasting.
Oh yes, guesses for the sheep's name.
If you can guess what the Newhall News lamb's name is, get it in there.
I think that sounds good.
We had good cheese puns last month, and now we're going to have good sheep names for this one.
Yes, it's a 150-acre estate. It's actually quite significant in English vineyard terms, and they've been gradually going through keeping some of their older things, planting some newer things as well, and they've had a massive push for quality and for some more scientific winemaking.
They're right in the Crouch Valley, aren't they? This is Crouch Valley fruit, which when we did Only Way as Essex, we kind of revealed that. Because there's a big chat, you know, a lot of England, there's a focus on Sussex, Kent, the two kind of big names. They were kind of like pioneering what was happening. But, you know, we can go to Norfolk, we can go to Essex, we can go to Cornwall, we can go to Devon. There's a lot of places where we can grow grapes now and grow grapes well. And I don't think we're starting to see, and we'll talk more about it next week for anyone who's on the adventure series with the Sussex PDO. But I think we're getting closer and closer to having this regionality. And I don't know how many people are going to love it, because you look at places, you know, Lyme Bay makes some great wine in Devon, but they use some grapes from Essex when they need to top up. You know, like we just tasted with Polgoon. They do some bits and pieces like that.
I think what's you're talking about the regionality of Bacchus. I think there's a lot of that showing up now. Obviously, it's very dependent. I think Bacchus is one of those grapes that works better in a cooler year for sure. But you start to notice the difference in heat between, let's say, East Anglia and Bacchus fruit going down in Cornwall or Devon. That stuff is a bit cooler, it's a bit fresher, it's a bit more floral. Whereas when you start going across towards Essex, it starts developing slightly more kind of developed,
a bit more almost like caramelly touch to
it, exactly.
You know, buttery, rich. It's got more richness.
It's got more richness, and it's got more of those sort of like, you know, stone fruits and melon characteristics coming into it. So
which is no different to a Chardonnay grown in Chablis versus going to Southern Burgundy, and you know, you see how that Chardonnay develops as you get a little bit further south, a little bit warmer. And it will be nice to have some level of English regionality, because there is a lot of just like English Bacchus, and that's English Bacchus. You don't do that anywhere else, do you? You know, and we're starting to see, you know, anywhere regionality, and you know, we're seeing it in Argentina now. We're seeing in a lot of new world places. You know, regionality's it's always been key in the old world. You know, Macon versus Polini versus Montrachet has always been a thing. And that's not very far apart.
No.
But we're now starting to see this regionality, that there is different climate, there is different rainfall, there is different
For sure.
soil, there is different slope aspects, and I think that's important. Not that we need any more, pages in the WSET books. They're getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Quite enough to learn on these things, and I think what we've been finding with Bacchus is that in some of those hotter years, it actually can go a little bit over the top. It ripens a bit too quickly, and it doesn't quite give you the best of expression. So it's great that we've got that sort of backup plan. There were some people in 2021, the disease was so big in their vineyards, and this is the thing: when you're doing the spraying, you can't spray. There's each chemical that you spray with, whether it's sort of a fungicide, will have a number of days that you cannot then harvest the grapes after that. But when does it rain in this country? In autumn. And when do we harvest in this country? Autumn. So people are in this terrible situation of, do we want to kind of leave the grapes out there hanging on the vines, trying to get as much ripeness and flavor ripeness as we can and sugar ripeness, or do we bring them in before they turn to mush? And so that's why being in,
there's a magical balance of skill and luck, isn't there?
There really is. What I thought was quite interesting was hearing today about how the land in Essex is very clay driven, and there's an awful lot of clay, and that actually, you can have this effect where if it rains around about the harvest time, the grapes they've been starved throughout the summer because they haven't been getting enough. They then suck up all of that water, pump it straight up to the grapes, and the grapes burst open. And so of course that then leads to more problems. So but the clay acts as a moderating influence, so it goes and makes the clay moist again rather than all going straight in. So it's another great reason. Not only do they not get as much rain, they also have this clay soil. I'm still going on about Essex again. Sorry.
It's fine. And I think it was interesting because the point you made about the Chardonnay Pinot Noir, when we first got into this online malarkey in 2020, we talked to a couple of winemakers and go, I kind of felt sorry for anyone who started winemaking in 2018 because they must have thought, this is an easy lark.
That's great.
It's ripe. It's there. I can make white. I can make red. I can make sparkling. I can do what I want. And then 19 hit, 20 hit, 21 hit.
Even 22, while it was a breakout year, for people with young vines that hadn't put their roots down super deep, that was really difficult because the vines were just, the moment they don't get enough water, the photosynthesis stops working. So that then stops them being cooled down by this natural breathing process, and it stops the grapes ripening. And you're sat there with all of this beautiful heat, and it can't actually do the job that it's trying to do. But people often talk about Bacchus as being like the Sauvignon Blanc of England. And so we've just had the actual Sauvignon Blanc of England, and I'd say that there's more similarities than I was expecting.
Yeah. Should we pop the tasting notes up and then we can compare?
Let's have a look.
But I think that's kind of it happens all around the world. It really happens all around the world because Sauvignon Blanc, I think, is a tempering grape that most people have heard of. So England's Sauvignon Blanc is Bacchus. If you go to Spain's Sauvignon, do they make Sauvignon Blanc in Spain? Of course they do. But you go Spain's Sauvignon Blanc is Verdejo, and it's kind of like, if you like Sauvignon Blanc and you want to drink local, what should you drink?
Yeah.
So I don't think we're doing a direct comparison between Sauvignon Blanc and Bacchus. But if you come from, France and you live in the Loire Valley and you drink Sauvignon Blanc, that's my kind of thing. I'm going to England. What should I drink that's local?
Yeah.
I think that's more what the thing is. It's not going. We're not trying to do eye for an eye, lemon for a lemon on Bacchus versus Sauvignon Blanc. But there are a lot of similarities. There's that lemon, that lime, that lightness, that freshness. But I think Bacchus always seems to have a little bit more in England, a little bit more herbaceousness and a little bit more body and a little bit more oomph about it,
especially even in a cooler year. We've got some very interesting notes about whether there's a slightly soapy character to it, and I am picking that up as well. I haven't done it in Bacchus much before, but the question was, is it very similar in tasting style to Torrontés? I haven't come across that, but I do get what you're saying about that wine, so that I'd be interested to know what's going on there.
So, can I be a yes no? Because I'm not one.
Yeah,
I'm
but
not.
no, but
I'm,
yeah.
but no, but yeah, but no. No. Yes. I don't see it as that. So because I get the point here, and I get the point of what it is, and what people are trying to say. That kind of like that cilantro-esque soapy thing that people talk about at Toronto's. For me, I think it's a little bit more about the body. It's almost got that almost slightly waxiness. It reminds me more, if I wanted to go for something like a bit more like Gruner-esque. That's kind of how I feel. That kind of like that heavy mouthfeel. I get why people might see that as soapy, but I think that's a more kind of like waxy. It's a textural thing rather than a flavory thing.
Yeah, and I suppose so many soaps are quite floral in their
yeah, so I think you're getting the floralness from the grape, and I think you're then getting that waxy, slightly waxy texture that you'd find in Veltliner. But I completely get the point there. I agree that you could be why you're picking that up. Does that make sense?
Interesting.
Hey, what do I know? I just drink. Exactly. Perfect. Should we head on to a little bit of
I think that feels like a good time to move on.
Bit of a blend.
3. So back in the very, very early days of the Online Wine Tasting Club, we went down to the original days. The original days. We went down to visit the Balfour Winery at Hushheath, which is just near where I went to school in Tunbridge. And it's a father-son winemaking team, although now Fergus, the son, is the head winemaker there. And they're just lovely people, aren't they? And they've got a beautiful, beautiful winery where you can go and sit overlooking the vineyards, and you can enjoy food and obviously some wine. Their sparklings are excellent. I've just got a little picture. Where's that gone? Yeah, this is the inside of their facility there, so you can see it's they've got space for people to come and do sort of a great tasting event.
Yeah, so if you see that picture while it's up, so obviously there's the bottom level, which is a shop, and then some tables there. You can get some great food. There's then got an upper level there that they do some tasting menus. You get out the window, and it's a massive balcony that overlooks the Nanette's vineyard, so you can just sit and overlook, and it's a nice, if you're ever going kind of towards like Broadstairs or that part of the world, it's a nice little stop off from where we are in the world. But no, we went there last summer on a stop off as we were going over, and stopped off with the wife, the kids, and had a wine fly, a bit of a snack, and they also make ciders, and they had the fresh pressed apple juice, just so the kids were drinking apple juice, which was amazing. And for those who know us from the beginning when we had Tring Winery, my son was like, "This is a little bit bigger than your winery, Daddy." I'm like, yes. Their parking space was bigger than our winery.
Well, this is
but no, they've been massive supporters of us coming through, and this is their the white, which is Bacchus and Pinot Blanc, and this is available only to members of their wine. Yeah,
and it's quite interesting. We don't know too much about this wine, so we're going to be having to make some deductions, which will be quite fun to do with all of you guys as well. Hushheath, it really is. It's a cracking set of views there. Doing a flight at 10 a.m. That's dedication. Fair play. So this is back into 2021 here now, and we are talking about grapes that really struggled to ripen enough. Now, that's not a problem for making sparkling wine, because you're going to add some sugar to do the second fermentation.
And you want mentally high acidity.
You want high acidity, yeah. And that is all fine. But the real skill comes in trying to take these grapes and make a wine that has got some kind of character to it and texture to it, and isn't just a sort of a very light, watery wine. So not everyone was able to do it. So let's have a go. So this is a 50-50 blend of Bacchus and Pinot Blanc. I don't think I've come across many Bacchus Pinot Blanc blends before, but...
No, I don't think so. Do you want to pop the tasting notes on so people can add that? They can give us a tasting note.
I thought I had, but it hasn't. Yeah, it has.
Oh, there it is. Happy days. So what would we be expecting? So we've had Bacchus, so we're expecting kind of that floralness, that texture, this. And what are we expecting from Pinot Blanc? Not dissimilar. You're going to have that richness. You're going to have that because it's a mutation of Pinot Noir, so you're going to have those richer flavors, that slightly weightiness in there. I really quite like this.
Yeah, it's a success when you consider what he was having to deal with, and a lot of the grapes were brought in at around 9.5% potential alcohol in the country. I don't know specifically in their vineyards what they did, but there were people still harvesting in the middle of November or even towards the end of November, which is absolutely unheard of. Where, you know, there were people harvesting sort of into August the previous year, last year. But yeah, that's got something to it, hasn't it?
So,
it shouldn't be kind of doing as much as it is.
So we talked about kind of going down there and tasting with that kind of stuff. What are you eating with something like this?
That's a great thing. What should you eat with this? Well, the winemaker has put the comment asparagus, which is a good call. But let me pull up this because this is interesting. Check that out. Blackcurrant. There is a very distinct note of black fruit in there, and that is unusual. Now, the other time that we got very tricked by a white wine that had dark fruit flavors to it was the Pinot Blanc that we tried at Oastbrook, wasn't it?
Yes.
Which we thought was probably a red-skinned grape that they'd made into a white wine.
It turned up from the tank, or the barrel, sorry, in a plastic Evian bottle.
Oh yes.
The winemaker go, try this.
Try this, yeah.
And we thought, okay, this is trying to trick us. So we're like, is it
Pinot
Noir? Is it Pinot Meunier? That's just like no skin contact. But yeah, it's got this red fruit characteristic.
Very bizarre, isn't it? And lovely.
But it's, when you think about where Pinot Blanc came from, because it is that mutation of Pinot Noir, where it's just got white skin, it's got the same flavors in the middle. So you're going to have those slight red or black fruit flavors. Yeah,
potentially. And I think I remember Nick from Oastbrook explicitly saying that they did some really crazy stuff with this wine to develop it. And Ferg is an experimenter in the winery. I think Ferg is one of the people who will have done lots of cool things. He just loves to play and experiment with a little bit of oak here and a little bit of a different yeast here, a little bit of a different temperature there. He likes to experiment and then give himself components to build back together into something which has complexity. And that is an excellent point. It just has this wide range of fruit flavors. And talking about balancing acidity, I think it's very important. English wines sometimes need a little bit of a helping hand with balancing acidity. And so they will de-acidify the wines to just drop it down. And it's all about just keeping it to the right spot. But, you know, what was mad was it's much more common around the world for winemakers have to try to top up the acidity of particularly of a red wine where they've left it on the vines to develop all that colour and beautiful, colourful skins. And they will then have to pop a bit of tartaric acid back in, which is what was now starting to drop out of the grapes as they got riper and riper throughout the season. Last year was the very first time that English winemakers had to ask for permission to add a little bit of acidity to some of their wines because the Pinot Noirs were coming in at sort of 14% alcohol. Some of them, and which is mad, but they still hadn't quite developed their flavors, so they left them on the vines to develop the color and the flavors from these skins. But the acidity was starting to drop off a bit, and it's a very weird situation. That would have actually been banned while we were in the EU now. So this is a rare example of winemakers actually getting some benefit from what's been going on. But yes, there we go. I like the fact we've got two about wonderfully different questions, which are both great. Ferg normally uses cultured yeast. That's
because he's a very cultured chap.
He's a very cultured chap. He's a classics student and all of that. And would it go with fish and chips? Yes. But I think fish and chips and English sparkling wine is a fantastic combination as well.
This sat outside. I keep saying sat outside in the sunshine, and I remember we're in England. But this with half a dozen oysters would be epic. Whitstable oysters.
Yeah.
Yes, that would make me very happy.
Definitely.
But yes, I think the point there from Martin is, if you're not sure if it would go with fish and chips, grab yourself a bottle, give it a go. Let us know.
Absolutely. So
this is good. This is growing on me. Like
it is.
Each time you go back, there's like something else going on in there. It's for what it is. It's relatively complex without there being a lot going on to make it
No.
complex. Does that make sense?
Exactly. It's not a deliberately sort of over oaked or anything like that. I think the other thing I'd say about Balfour is that because of Ferg's and Owen's experimental nature, they like to produce these cool limited edition ones, and some of them are quite expensive. Their red was absolutely phenomenal a few years back. Their single variety Pinot Meunier, wasn't it?
The Red Miller.
The Red Miller.
That is probably. I'm being very generic.
It's up there, isn't it?
It's in the top 5 red English wines I've ever had.
Yeah. And the beats
I think that's enough to cover me from when I've said this is the top wine I've ever had. So I think top 5 red English wines I've ever had.
Easily. Yeah, it was fantastic.
And comparable to and it wasn't good because it was an English red. It was a good red wine that happened to be from England. Yeah. And I think we're starting to see more of that in the UK. There always used to be a little kind of like asterisk or a caveat on it. Oh, this is pretty good for an English wine. And I had very similar when I lived in Washington, D.C., because Virginia was an up-and-coming wine region.
Yeah.
And people would give it
a little bit of trip.
People would go, oh, this is pretty good for Virginia.
Yes.
And I think we're getting away from that in England.
We're
turning around and going, this is just good. It doesn't matter whether it's English, French, Italian, whatever. This is just good. And I think we've got to realise that as we look at the purchasing of English wines, because a lot of people go, but English wine is quite expensive.
It is, yes.
But you can turn around and go, well, French wine is quite expensive if you buy first growth Bordeaux. And Italian wine is quite expensive if you buy XYZ. But English wine, I think if you take an English Chardonnay, and not stylistically, but if you try and match quality for quality against Burgundian Chardonnay, I don't think we're a million miles away. That you go, what you would spend on a 30 quid bottle of English, and this we're not talking about this price, but what you spend on a 30 quid bottle of English Chardonnay for someone perhaps like Simpsons, because they're a very Chablis-esque kind of style, against a bottle of Chablis, I think the quality for price ratio is pretty good. Yeah,
agreed. I think, and the value for money, absolutely, it can really be there now. I think we've got away from it. There is an inherent disadvantage we've got, is that we're only making small quantities.
Scale is tough.
Scale is a problem. But then you've got things like this Mary Rose 2020, which Owen, Fergus's father, made this year. He made it 2 years ago, but it's been released this year. He wanted to explore the potential for English still rosés, where it's had a bit of time, particularly in barrel. This was Pinot Noir fermented with a yeast from Rioja, and then given oak from France and America, and then it was aged in ebony glass.
As you can see, he's well prepped for this tasting. He's not just reading notes on his phone.
I'm not, but I didn't know about it. I just wanted to get the...
To be correct.
But that's £40. But you'd be comparing that high-end rosés. Let's start talking about your Whispering Angel group.
Whispering Angel group, they're high-end. Minute, Miraval, something beginning with G. And they've got the Rock. They go up to quite expensive prices, and...
That's a lovely tasting note. Yeah, it just has that little bit of butter.
I think value for money is very, very personal. Okay, I like to think that I pick wines and put on here that I feel are good value for money, but it's very each their own. You can drink something that's £6 and you think that's really good value for money because it was quaffed with it. You can buy something that's 500 quid and think, oh, it's great value for money because of the history in this.
Yeah.
And you can buy something for 10 quid and go, what a waste of time.
Yeah,
like a ticket to Chelsea at the moment. That is not good value for money.
I pretend to know what he's talking about. Before we move on, because I guess there are people at various different stages of tastings, I'll just have one quite last little look at that English hedgerow feel. Ribena, isn't that funny? A white wine tastes a little bit of Ribena. That's great. But melons and the saltiness, it's definitely got a very kind of like sort of chalky quality to it, doesn't it, as well? And that's lovely. Great tasting notes there, everybody. Really liking seeing what you're coming up with. Before we go on to the red, shall we play a little update?
Before we go on to the red, should we drink the last white?
We can drink the last white. Well, before we go on to the last three, I'm so used to it being 3 whites and 3 reds.
I know, but we're in England.
We're not. We're in England.
So should we get wine for in the glass and just say, hi, this is what it is? Move the tasting notes on. We can then go to the video and then we can come back. So people are finished. They're not left without anything to drink because that would be
makes
sad.
Sense. Okay.
and you can explain the video, what's going on. So we're moving
I
on.
can't, but somebody else in the chat can, because it's her video. So we are very lucky to have Kathy, who is one of our members and also is one of the owners of the El Pasión winery in Argentina, and she's been kind enough to put together a nice little update video showing what they've been up to recently.
So missing Gate Pinot Blanc in your glass, El Pasión on your screens, and we will be back in just a couple of minutes.
Back in a sec.
Hi, this is Kathy from El Pasión with the regular update from the vineyard in Argentina. El Pasión is located in the UK Valley, which is about an hour and a half's drive from Mendoza City, and you pass through a lot of countryside on the way, as you can see here.
Turning right onto the Route 94, you pass a series of wine bottles on the right-hand side on the way to El Pasión.
Most of the wineries in the valley have impressive entrance gates, so you know you've arrived at the right place. The 2023 harvest is now complete. The harvest starts with white grapes, and you can see our Chardonnay being harvested here.
All our grapes are hand harvested, and you can see there's the initial sorting carried out in the vineyard to maintain high quality.
The first red grape we harvested is our Pinot Noir, which you can see being harvested here.
This year has been challenging due to lots of frost. This map shows the summer temperatures with the blue areas most affected. Overall estimates were around 50% of grapes were lost. Being in Los Chacayes at the top, we were less affected by the frost. We harvested 265,000 kilos of grapes, which is 18% less than last year. However, according to our resident winemaker Ezequiel, the grapes from this season are of excellent quality, and all our tanks in our winery are now full. A success story this year has been our rosé, which is now all sold out. Our rosé will next be available in a few months when the 2023 vintage is ready.
That was a really interesting thing. I loved seeing all those big wine bottles as you drove into the valley. That's super cool. Yeah, we've got to pop out and say hello at some point, because it just looks a fantastic place. But isn't it crazy to hear how frost can affect like places so diverse as up in the mountains of Argentina and also sort of down into
the valley floors of
Kent.
Kent. Absolutely. And it's just strange that, you know, in the UK we think, oh, harvest is September, but we've got wine being made year round globally now, and as wine's becoming more global and more accessible, there's always new vintage, new this, new something. So really excited to see what the 2023 vintage holds coming out from El Pasión. So thank you very much for the update, Kathy. Really cool.
So we're moving back to Essex now, aren't we? Missing Gate Vineyard, which is a little bit sort of further inland than Newhall, if I've got my geography right. But it is
yes. But you're still Crouch Valley.
Yes.
Still Crouch Valley.
Exactly. So this is the Crouch Valley in Essex, and a difficult year 2021, as we've said, and yet 12% alcohol, 12.5% alcohol. That is very, very interesting, because if you've got people who are struggling to get them in at 9.5%, that means that here, where you've got a natural 12.5%, that because you aren't allowed to sort of add sugar to get up to those kind of percentages, that's a really, really big demonstrator of just how the conditions can vary, but also with a grape like Pinot Blanc. So this is completely different to the last one, isn't it?
So this is Missing Gate Vineyard, and these guys have grown great grapes for a while. 2018 was when they started making their own wines, but they've also sold grapes to other people and other projects. So for those of us who joined us on the station when we did the Gutter and Stars Bacchus,
this is made in a windmill in Cambridge.
Made in a windmill in Cambridge. That came from Missing Gate Vineyard in Crouch Valley. And yeah, we've been in touch, going backwards and forwards with these guys about doing tasting projects for a while. And it was finally nice to be able to
Pop them in, yeah.
Get to a point where we could bring them in there. So they make a Pinot Blanc, they make a Bacchus. They're experimenting with some new stuff. So they think they're going to have maybe 5 wines for this year. One away from a tasting pack.
One away from a tasting pack. Well, just enough to put some olives in or something.
Exactly. So I think once again, and I know the last one was a blend, but it just shows the difference in style. That you go Pinot Blanc from here, Pinot Blanc from here, Pinot Blanc from there is very different. And this is a much richer, I think someone put in the tasting note, luxurious. And I like that tasting note. That is a really good tasting note. Buttery, butter, apricot. And this is where we start, a lot. God, here we go, blanket statement. There's a large amount of English wines that focus on light fruit, high acid.
Yep.
Because it's generally a bit cooler. It's hard to get great ripeness. So therefore we sing for let's do these high acid, zippy styles of wine. Yeah. This is not that. This is rich and round and decadent and cries out for food. And this, for me, is your quintessential Sunday lunch, roast chicken, bottle of this.
And you'd normally expect people making this kind of style to go with something like a Chardonnay. And I think it was Oz Clarke who said he thinks that Pinot Blanc and Pinot Gris are potentially England's 2 big sort of secrets that we could really do some interesting stuff with. And it's nice to see that actually coming true. It turns out Oz knows what he's talking about.
Absolutely.
But the butteriness, then they will have been trying to sort of de-acidify it by doing the malolactic fermentation, where a little bacteria turns the sharp appley acidity, malic acid, into lactic buttery acid.
Milky, lactic.
Yeah.
So malic.
Yeah, exactly. Makes kind of sense, doesn't it?
Malolactic conversion.
Right, look at this. Stone fruits and butter. That's not the kind of characteristics you'd say. That's the characteristics you'd say of something that's come from somewhere hot, not something that's come from Essex in a particularly sort of challenging year. I think that's very cool what they've done.
Buttery, butter popcorn. No one's put butter toast in yet. Well, but it'll get there soon.
It will do. Yeah.
Margarine.
Don't be ridiculous.
Have a smell and go, I can't believe it's not.
So he says on the tasting notes with a bit of nectarine and crushed almonds. Now,
we got nectarine in there. Look,
we have got nectarine. Very good.
A massive nectarine.
I'm not sure I'm getting that very much, but
yeah, it's definitely got that stony fruit thing. Yeah, that buttery and that nuttiness. Lobster with butter sauce.
Yes, Jennifer.
Jennifer, you are officially banned from putting pairings in because you're making me hungry. There was brie earlier, wasn't there? Brie. Now we've got lobster and butter, and
lovely. Yep, there we go. Oh, that was on the previous one, wasn't it? But
exactly.
Yes.
That's online. No more tasting notes.
Luxurious. It is. It's a luxurious wine. I like that. Very impressive. They've done a great job with that.
I kind of feel like we could just stop the tasting here. I'm just going to hang out with this wine for about. If we take a pause for 10 minutes while I sit and sip on this, would everyone be all right with that?
Probably.
Not.
But so I'm fascinated to see if that's what they can produce in a year like 21. What on earth are they going to do next year?
So their 2020 won loads of awards. Their 2020 was stonking.
Yeah.
But also 2.5 times the price. So
that's an excellent question. So it is used quite a lot, but it's only on things like Chardonnay, but it gives this very kind of buttery characteristic, doesn't it? And I think people like the freshness. They want to make these kind of crisp things.
And I think that's the thing. It's what the final style the winemaker's looking for. Because malolactic, a lot of the time in whites, equates to then having some oak barrel and that kind of. You got oak, lees, mallow. It all
comes together.
That's the style.
But that can hide a lot of grapes, especially if the flavors are quite subtle in the first place. So it probably comes down.
Yeah, if you've got something delicate and light, we're not. You look, and I know. There's lots of people out there kind of experimenting now, but you don't see a lot of barrel aged Sauvignon Blanc because you're looking for the aromatics in this. You don't see a lot of barrel aged Viogniers. No. So because that mutes those kind of floral things and the acidity and stuff like that. So a lot of it is about what is the final style you're looking for. So
Yeah.
if you want a big, rich Chardonnay, you'll do Malo. If you want a crisp, fresh Chardonnay, you'll stay clear of it.
Yeah.
And then if you've got a wine that's very, very, a grape that's very delicate, when you start playing with Malo and you start doing that, you can lose the essence of the grape, which can create a phenomenal wine if that's what you're looking for. But it's kind of let's work with what we've got and what we can do. Let's not try and force it into something else.
But it's definitely in the toolbox that English winemakers use. They very much do try to reduce the overall acidity by turning it from malic, which is a lot more noticeable, into lactic, a lot more gentle. So it's absolutely is a technique they use. I think they would probably use it all the time if they could, in a lot of years. Other years they might want to preserve the acidity.
Well, I think there's a thing just and I don't want to get too geeky on discoveries, but I'm going to. You don't. It's not an all or nothing.
No.
You can do partial Malo. So you go, let's put 30% of the wine through malolactic conversion and leave 70% alone, or 10%. So the winemaker's able to mess around a little bit. If they want a bit more richness, they can put a little bit through. So, and then you'll see some people will put, we put 70% of the wine in stainless steel, 30% in old French oak or something like that. So there's a lot of things that people are able to do to tweak and change and go, and go around there. And as On's here, other grapes that go for that. Chardonnay is really good for Malo. Things like Marsanne and Roussanne do very well. It's generally heavier grapes, the grapes that you see that are that darker, richer style that you just want to round them out and give them a hug and bring them in. So Marsanne, Roussanne, Grenache Blanc does very well. So generally those Rhone style whites are good for that. Viura in Spain for white Rioja, that can go both ways. You get some very nice light fresh ones, and then you do some barrel aged ones, do really, really well. And then obviously Chardonnay. So I think those are some of the grapes that people might have heard of that
do that.
Can do quite well with a bit of Malo, bit of lees, bit of texturizing.
And then also all the reds, of course, the red wines, generally speaking, will go through Malo.
Most reds go through Malo.
Yep. And obviously it's just about trying to find that style. And it can emphasize certain flavors and it can block others. But if you do part through Malo and part not through Malo, you have to be very, very careful when you bring them back together that you aren't then introducing the bug that will then turn all of that
Malo the rest.
And if that's happening in your bottle, you're going to have a bad time. It's not it's going to be a bit fizzy and quite unpleasant, and not ideal.
You don't want a re-fermenting secondary Malo ferment in the bottle.
No thanks. No, I think I'll pass on that.
Yeah, should we?
Yeah, cool wine.
Should we have a last little look at the tasting notes and move on to the reds?
Sherbet. Fuzzy peach, I rather like. That's great.
Who doesn't love a fuzzy peach?
Kumquats, excellent. Yeah, I mean, that's great, isn't it? That's lovely.
What we're going to have to do is we're going to have to create a wine and send it out blind to everyone, and that's going to be our label. We're going to have everyone just do their tasting notes.
Yes.
And that's a we won't do tasting notes for it. We'll just send that out, and we're going to crowdsource our tasting notes for the label.
Well, there you go, Kathy. If you've got a wine that you want to do with that as well, so you don't want to tell anyone what it is, we'll crowdsource your tasting notes for you, and it can be your label. That's excellent.
I think that's an epic idea. Look at that. The things we learn on a Wednesday night.
Yeah.
Okay, so reds.
Reds.
Let's talk a little bit about English reds, because they can be a little touch of an elephant in the room, you could say, because generally people go, England don't do reds well. And I will say that England do reds very badly sometimes. Yes, is that a fair point?
That's fair.
There have been some
shockers
wines that people have gone, let's make some red wine and then let's not do it at all. But also, I judged at the IWC this week, and there were some people that just should not be making wines at all either.
And they've paid to put their wine into the competition.
But it is what it is. But there were also some epic wines. We got to do a flight of Merceaux, which was
all right. But so what we haven't talked about is the 2020 vintage, because that has not been mentioned. So 2020, it was again a slightly challenging year, but there was a lot of
2020 and then 2020. 2.
Oh gosh. Well, this would be 20. I'm just trying to get a 2020 vision pun in at some point. I'm not going to. Okay,
That's hindsight.
so 2020, the year kicked off, and well, there were various things happening in the world in 2020. And I remember quite vividly we had frost while we were all sat there in lockdown, and then hailstorms. The frost was,
and then 5 days of sunshine,
and then this glorious summer.
Because I remember it was the weekend that we opened Tring Winery in February. The
high winds,
beautiful sunshine.
Yep.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, when everyone was at work still. Friday, as people could come out drinking, hailstones, like people literally lost their fence panels.
Yeah.
We had snow.
Yep.
Then it was sunny again. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah.
Friday.
It was crazy.
It was insane. It was not ideal.
A really challenging, and of course, so a lot of vineyards got frost damage. There was nothing they could do about it. What happens when you get frost damage is, generally speaking, it kills off the little shoots that have just come out, but there is a secondary bud hiding underneath the surface, which, if you're lucky, will then start coming out, and you've got some growth. You won't have as many grapes on that, but you'll get some. But then, of course, that summer, while we were all locked down at home, everyone was apparently partying in their gardens all the time, as far as we could see.
It was amazing how families of 2 could drink 84 bottles of wine in an evening.
Yeah, we were selling the wine to them, so we saw where it was going. But so not very many grapes.
Oh, sorry.
And it all started late. I'll put the tasting notes on, yeah. So it all started a bit late. But, Stand Lake Park.
That's correct.
Stan Lake.
No,
there's Stan Lake.
D.
There's no D. That's missing gate.
Well, no, there's not.
It doesn't matter. Okay, so Stan Lake Park, yeah. So when the shoots came out, it made some beautiful, beautiful grapes, and there was tiny amounts of it. Again, it was just not long after this 2018 where we'd had massive yields. 2020 comes along, kills everything off at the beginning, and then those people who didn't suffer from the frost, and those people whose grapes came along late, then got this beautiful, beautiful summer, and it ripened and it made some good wine. So, what's this one like? I know more of Stan Lake Park as a kind of a beautiful place with a wedding venue. This is what the vineyards look like, overlooking a house, and you can go and get married in this barn, and all looks very, very beautiful indeed. But I don't know much about their wines. We did their
Dornfelder on a tasting, and I did it as a Vino versus Vino, England versus Germany, and their Dornfelder beat the German Dornfelder.
Yeah, it did, didn't it?
Yes, it did. So what do you think of this? I think it's quite smoky.
It is smoky.
It's got a bit of chewiness to it. It's got some texture, but there is some lovely fruit in there. Good fruit, kind of very. And Pinot Noir is weird because I think Burgundy is very expensive now.
Yep.
And there's becoming this bit more of a transition that people are drinking more New World Pinot Noirs, whether it's from Chile, like northern Chile, or whether it's California, or kind of southern Australia, or New Zealand, which is definitely fruitier than this and more of those kind of ripe fruits.
Yeah.
This is more towards that Burgundian style of that kind of like crunchy cranberry and, that almost like slightly underripe tart red fruit, rather than that kind of like opulent plummy kind of thing.
So a little bit of bitterness, smoke, which is probably from the barrels. It's interesting, but a little bit thin. Jennifer agrees, and then a few spicy notes again.
Talking about us.
They're not talking about thin if it's us, that's for sure. And a little bit like northern Italian Pinot Noirs. Like, that's an interesting note. I like that.
Yeah, but once again, slightly, you go up into the Dolomites, Alto Adige, you are that little bit cooler, that little bit more relying on acidity and.
So this is 11.5% alcohol. So we know it wasn't one of the super big boy, probably not allowed to say that, super big styled Pinot Noirs, which has got really jammy fruit. It's not going to be an Oregonian one. It's not going to be a Californian one. It's not even going to be a sort of a very Burgundian one. But it's probably not that dissimilar to what a lot of Burgundies were like
10 years ago.
Well, yeah, or even longer ago. When one of the funny things is Burgundy used to have some real quality problems. While we think of it as this epitome of winemaking, there were lots of the wines that were coming in quite thin and quite sort of a bit
average.
Yeah, bit average. And winemakers were doing two things. One, they were carrying around Citron 2CV's load of granulated sugar to try to tip into the grape juice to try to give it a bit more oomph. And they were blending in wine from Morocco, which, of course, kind of by sort of being, related to France, they were able to sort of get the wine in without too many people noticing. But somebody wrote a book and documented all these practices, and suddenly the secret was out, and they realized they had to raise their game pretty big time. I think a lot of those earlier Burgundies from 20, 30 years ago were probably nowhere near as good as we think they are now. So,
is that why they've made them so
expensive?
So expensive, so no one can actually afford to
Totally,
open one,
yeah.
to drink it, to call them out on it and go, these 1952 Burgundies at 300 grand a bottle are no good.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously they've had the benefits of the.
Can I quote you on that? You've said 50s and 60s Burgundy, don't do it.
Yeah, but it's
unless it was bottled in Morocco.
I'm coming around to it a bit more. So, is this as good as the best English Pinot Noirs that I've had? No, I don't think it's as. But I think it's a perfectly good one, actually. Yeah, and it's certainly there's nothing that's making me go, oh, I can't drink this.
So I think what's interesting about this when we come around to pricing is, I think the best English Pinot Noirs you've had will have been 2 or 3 times the price of this.
Yeah.
And then you have to make that decision. Would you rather have 1 bottle of that or 2 or 3 bottles of this? And that's the thing. And I think that's what's kind of, it's all about, value. We've talked on things previously about, Côte de Rhône versus Châteauneuf de Pape. Is the Châteauneuf de Pape better? Yes. Is it 3 times better? That's your choice.
Yeah.
And that's where you perceive either value, quality, or needing the name of the label on your table. And that's what's important.
Yeah. So in comparison, the Danbury Ridge, who I think is probably one of the better Pinot Noirs I've tried again, their 2021, which was also aged in French oak, very much like this one, but that came in at 13% alcohol. And
so it's going to have
it's got an awful lot more to it. So, but that costs around about sort of 40, 50 pounds a bottle.
If you're allowed
to even buy it. Yeah, we keep trying to get it to put into the tastings, and they won't sell it to us. so I think it's all about context. So where would we put this wine? What would we eat with this?
Well, Jennifer.
Oh, it's Jennifer on
Jennifer's in again. Mushroom risotto this time with a bit of.
It does need some food. I think they've had to work the skins quite a lot, and that's brought a little bit of tannin out that you might not expect it.
That really pushed the extraction.
Yeah,
to
they pushed the extraction to get a bit more colour.
But yeah, mushroom risotto with a bit of truffle.
A bit of truffle on top.
Wow, that sounds like a good
truffle
idea.
Obsessed now.
Well, you took me to the dark side.
And another comment of a good Sunday roast with a Pinot Noir. White Castle's Pinot Noir is fantastic. This is this utterly bizarre thing. It won an IWC gold medal at the International Wine Challenge. It won a gold medal for Pinot Noir from Wales. I mean, absolutely astonishing. They're lovely guys.
We should do a trip.
We need to do a trip
because there's Harold and Kumar go to White Castle. We should do Jamie and Alex go to
White Castle.
Alex
go to White Castle.
It'd be great, and we have to drink through every winery on the way there.
I think that
would be a great idea.
Seems good. How does it compare to the Macarena Pinot Noir from Chile?
Well, it doesn't have a dance. So the Macarena, it's cool climate for Chile, but it's still quite warm.
Yeah.
So the Macarena for me is much more fruit driven.
Yeah.
It's light strawberry. It's got strawberry, cherry, and it's fruit forward notes. There's not a lot of tannin. There's not that chewiness. There's not that smokiness that comes with it. Macarena for me is a much more pick it up, drink it, get on with it, see you later glass of wine.
Yeah.
This is definitely, as been mentioned, definitely you want to have a little bit of food with it. This isn't something I could just open a bottle of and have it in front of me and go bang, 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 it's gone. The Macarena, you could quite easily do that with. So this is,
it's almost the classic old world, new world difference there.
It is.
You know?
Like the Stanley Park is definitely more complex. There's more things going on with it and a more interesting wine. But for everyday drinking, maybe a bit more of a struggle. Whereas the Macarena is you just have a case of it and you open a bottle and it keeps everybody happy.
There's more going on, but it fades away quite fast. The length isn't necessarily there on this one that you might get on something that's had that a bit more of a kind of riper lifestyle.
But I think that's the thing. If you line them up, if the sommelier in me goes, if someone came in and said, "Hey, I'm looking at a Pinot Noir, this one or this one," I wouldn't recommend one over the other because they're so different. Yeah. And it would be if you're looking for that more earthy, structured, texture style of Pinot Noir, you want to go to Stanlake. And if you're looking for that fruity, juicy, quaffable style, that's where you're going to go.
Martin's on to wine number 6. Let's move on to wine number 6. We got a final look at those things. Smells like a dry sauna. Right, I just had a sauna built, so I'm going to have to challenge on that one. Let's have we'll see what's going on.
Well, are we all going to go around your house and smell your dry sauna just to compare for those of us that don't have a sauna?
You're very welcome.
Sometimes Alex Taylor and his first world problems on this tasting. I've just had my sauna built.
Trying to find electricians that know anything about saunas in this country is a little bit challenging.
Yeah, most of us have, most of our people who have a wooden thing in their garden, they have a shed.
A shed.
Okay.
It is a shed, basically.
No, it's a shed with some coal in it.
Actually, it's a shed that's more of a barrel because, of course, wine.
So you've got a barrel that you're not keeping any wine in. What a waste of time.
All right, so where are we? We've gone back to Norfolk, haven't we? Good old.
We were never in Norfolk.
Yeah, well, no, as in we've been in Norfolk on other occasions. We're back into East Anglia.
I was in Norfolk last week.
You were? That's right. You went on.
But that has got nothing to do with this.
It hasn't.
No, I'm digressing on wine 6. Is everyone's like, can they shut up? We want to go to bed.
Amen. You are correct. Yeah, now this, for a 2021 wine.
Are you crowdsourcing an electrician mid-show? Plumbers, electricians,
Why not?
Yeah.
It is, look at that colour. That is definitely a not typical English red wine colour. And this is in this tricky, cold year. Yeah. So, how have they done that? Well, the key is in the grapes they've used. They did not go with Pinot Noir. They've gone with things which were designed. They were actively designed for colder climates. They were literally in the research institutes in Germany created for places like this.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got 2 hybrid grapes in here, and they are one called Regent and another called Rondo. Yeah. And what we mean by a hybrid grape is when we've got our general winemaking grapes, they are what are called vinifera grapes.
That is the species.
That is the species of grape. So Chardonnay is vinifera, Riesling is vinifera, Merlot is vinifera.
Yeah.
And sometimes when it's a little bit tricky and these vinifera grapes either can't ripen or they're in an area where they need to be protected from disease or the elements or something like this, we end up with this hybrid where we'll bring a slightly different species, sometimes something like Lambrusco, which is an American American species, and that will get blended. They'll blend them together to take the best of both worlds to make it happen.
So So we got there's the 3 terms. Obviously, we should be a bit careful. So a blend is obviously a blend of wines. Where we go.
He's going to tell you about blendings, crossings and
hybrids. I'm not. Do you know what? If you want
zebra crossing, pelican crossing,
but the hybrids where a cross grape would be, let's say, Cabernet, 2 viniferas, so the same species of plants crossed with each other, and then the hybrid is where you've got two different species. It's like cats and dogs living together. It's chaos and carnage, and a lot of people look down at these hybrid grapes
like a liger.
But this is the liger of grapes. That's the lion tiger hybrid. Is it right? So are they considered to be these noble grapes? Perhaps not, but they reliably make a product that is actually quite tasty, even in a challenging year. I think they've got it there, because there's a lot of rondos that I don't want to put my nose in at all. But like Cheryl says, it is a classic fruity wine. We've got a badger in the tasting notes.
Well, we haven't had one of them.
We haven't had one of
while.
those for a while.
That makes
Excellent.
me happy.
But lots of different sweet plums, black plums. You've got nettle, blackberry, raspberry.
So
there's a lot going on there.
And what's interesting here? So we're in Norfolk. So we are relatively north. You know where this is. We're up Birmingham if we come across. So it's quite far north.
Yeah.
But what we've got here is it's dry for most of the year.
Yeah.
Because the wet weather comes from the Atlantic. So by the time it's come over the Atlantic and it's hit Cornwall, Devon, the rest of the world,
everything else, yeah,
you know, with your rain shadows of, you know,
yep,
a lot of that moisture has now gone from there. So you get the longest dry periods in all of the country are in Norfolk. The problem with Norfolk for growing grapes is grapes like to be on a bit of a hillside, and hills are few and far between that. But if you can find a good slope in Norfolk, you've got a good chance of making some great wine. And there's some fantastic wineries up there.
This is quite a new operation, but you've got not far from. So this is in North Creek. North Creek. So there's a beautiful abbey that you can go and walk around a room down.
And you're 4 miles from the ocean, so you've got this moderating effect. So it doesn't get overly hot or overly cold. So it's, you know, you get this nice consistency.
But you're not that far from the winery Winbury. Has anyone been to Winbury or heard of Winbury? You've joined Flint as a member, the Venn Club. That is an excellent club to join, and you will love Ben.
Is that so you can design the label?
Yeah, they do. They're great guys. They're right down sort of the south side of Norfolk. If you go up to Winbury, which is just northwest of Norwich itself, they won. What was their award? Was it the best white wine in the world? In a
best white single varietal wine.
Yes.
And I want
in
to
one
say,
competition.
I want to say it was for their Pinot Gris in 2020, but I'm speculating here.
I think it was even earlier than that, and I can't remember what grape it was. But I can Google it. But yeah, so a lot of their advertising has "we made the best wine in the world" kind of thing. But their wines are great. Their wines are really good. Best wine. I will do that.
Who's going to find that while we go through the tasting notes here? So yeah, so I think it's interesting because there's so many grapes that get kind of picked up on that. You know, Chardonnay is, you know, the king of this. Riesling is this. You know, we talk about Nebbiolo in Italy, and sometimes these hybrids that are less known are kind of like they're set down on. You know, and these grapes and styles that are made to be able to survive where they are, you know, these peewee grapes do a really good job and make some really good wine, and it's absolutely fantastic. So
it was their 2017 Bacchus won a platinum medal, best in show, as the best single varietal white wine in the world for at a certain price point. So the more you get into it, there are fewer qualifiers.
So I only got the wrong grape and the wrong year, but outside of that,
other than that, yeah, I think you're close enough. You're close enough. But yeah, it's so you're not far from these guys. Quite clearly, if they can be winning platinum medals in decanters awards, they're doing something right. So this is a good place to grow grapes. But again, challenging year, and regardless of the fact that East Anglia doesn't get much frost because of its proximity to the ocean, well, to the North Sea at least, but it still wasn't very warm there. So to get the wine up to 11% and that colour is an achievement. And I've got to hand it to them. They've made something quite quaffable, a very good, nice, easy drinking wine.
I think this is it's an absolute crowd pleaser wine. If you want to drink English and you want to drink red and you want to put this in the middle of the table for everyone to have a glass of, I think this is an absolute winner.
Yeah,
for what
much like the New Hall's red blend was as well last year, which was put together. The Baron's a very similar.
That was Regent and Rondo with some Pinot Noir in there, I think, and so it's using those grapes, and I think what's important about using grapes like this is when people use them to their strengths,
Mhm.
they do very well.
Yeah.
When they try and create something that's like something else,
Yeah.
you can't make a Rondo into a Shiraz. It's
No,
not possible.
No.
You know, you can't make a region into a Pinot Noir. Okay, you can't pretend that's what it is.
Yep.
You've got to take it for what it is, take its good points,
Mhm.
and make the best of it and go, hey, I'm going to make the best Rondo I can. And are you going to get a majorly structured wine that's going to, you know, people are going to write
No.
100 pages of tasting notes about? No, you're going to get a badger and some raspberry, and you're going to be okay. But not all wine needs that.
And
Not all
here you
wine
are, you're
needs-
supporting a family enterprise, 2 sisters and a brother. It's quite a young thing. They only had their winery built a couple of years ago. It's a it's a good wine from some nice people, made locally.
And you
to
know
near
what?
you. That's worth supporting.
So these guys got recommended to me by the other Alex.
The other
Taylor
Alex Taylor, yeah,
from
yeah,
the
okay.
Independent English Wine Awards. And when I contacted them, they couldn't have been more excited to get the wine on the show
That's
and in
great.
front of people. And you know, and when people have that kind of attitude, it's really exciting for us to be able to showcase these wines for people who go, really, you'll do that? You want to use our wine out of 6 wine? I'm like, yes, we do. And it's really nice to, you know, to showcase these slightly smaller wineries from places that you might not have heard of, that you don't just drive by. You know, we've got some big boys in this country now. You know, we've got the Night Timbers, we've got the Ridge Views, we've got the Rathfinnys, and they make really good wine, really good wine. But it's nice just to be able to dot around and go, here's something that you might not have seen. Here's something that we like, that we think are cool and are good people.
Plus, these hybrid grapes, they are better for the environment, and there are more and more people talking about them as being at the key. If you don't need to drive your tractor through the vineyard and spray them with chemicals as much as you'd have to do with a Chardonnay, or that's a good thing.
Should we put up wine of the night?
Yeah, I will hide this as usual and move it on to the wine of the night, so we can see. I mean, how the hell are you supposed to pick from that? I have absolutely no idea. But
all of them. I think
you can drag these into your order if you've not done this before. And
so, what I will say is, usually I turn around and go, if you love the wines, come to us and buy it. You know what? If you want a mixed case of a few bits and pieces, come and see us. That's great. Get on the website and you can buy them from us. If there was one particular wine that you loved, call the vineyard, turn around and say, hey, I need 2 cases of this. But just mention that, you know, you tasted it with us, and just say, hey, the guys at the Online Wine Tasting Club, they sent us some wine. They talked a bit for an hour, but you know, the wine was good enough that we could get through their yabbering on. So we'd like to buy some more.
Fair.
Fair. If you know, when you can, support the vineyards, because they're
all young businesses and it's hard work.
Wine's an expensive gig, and you know, by the time it's, you know, comes from them and they truck it over to us, and then, you know, we have to make a bit of money to pay our bills, and then we sell it on to you. Go straight to them, because you're putting more money in the vineyard's pocket. Then that's going to enable them to get better, grow, do more styles, increase what they're doing, put the money back into it. So yeah, hey, you need a mixed case, the wine's here for you. But if you want to do some bits and pieces, go direct to the vineyard and say that we sent you down, because that's the best way to support the English wine industry. And more of them, they're building great tasting rooms. The tourism that's going with English wine is becoming fantastic. So yeah, so support. And if you've got something like, I think someone mentioned earlier, they've got Nutboard on their doorstep, get out, support local. It's the way to do it, because we complain that the prices are quite high.
Yeah.
But until we buy more of it, they can't bring the prices down.
Shall I pop the prices up? I've also popped up another little question, which is just for our sake. We're going slightly mad here, and we'd love to know what you're trying to get out of being on a wine tasting night like this. So, is it all about learning, or is it about is it just a fun thing to do, a cheaper value date night than going out to a wine bar by the time you put your taxis in?
You didn't put the option, put the kids to bed early because you can say mummy's got a wine tasting. No.
That never works though, does it? That doesn't work. Yeah.
Well, no, I'm sat here, and like my kids asking my wife to put questions in for me. So
brilliant. Well, who'd like to know the results of the survey in terms of which was the winner of wine of the night? Well, it was wine number 4, narrowly. but only just over wine number 3, the Bacchus Pinot Blanc blend. And I think that's a good, sensible result.
So,
that makes sense.
Yeah,
to me.
I think with this one this month, it's a bit null and void though, really, isn't it? Because they're all different, they're all cool, they all do their own thing. And I guarantee if we did the same tasting again tomorrow night,
we'd get a different result.
With a different set of people, we'd have a different result.
Absolutely. One of the joys of all of the corporate tastings we did over lockdowns, we often did the same tasting multiple times
a day.
and people were so utterly inconsistent. The groups were amongst each other. So that was really cool. Jennifer says all 3 together. That is great to know. So the prices, okay, it's English wine. Nothing's going to be super cheap, unfortunately. But I think there's a few. I think you see the value of using those hybrid grape varieties. They just are so much easier to deal with. So that can then come across and be reflected. But I think that things like the Stanley Pinot Noir at £23 for an English Pinot Noir is not
quite
bad.
good.
It's quite good. It's quite good. And I think that the Sauvignon for 1995, I think that's really interesting.
If you compare that to where New Zealand Sauvignon's getting to, or a Sancerre's getting to now, and once again, I know stylistically very different, but for that grape variety, it's
But they had to build a polytunnel around it to make it, so that doesn't just happen magically. That's expensive to do over.
And it's in Cornwall. And if the traffic's wrong, it takes 14 and a half hours to get out of there.
That is true. I'm going to pop it on to the very last question of the night, which is, have you had a good time? And then I think we're going to say our goodbyes.
Any final points in the chat?
Have we got any final points in the chat? And does anyone want to guess the name of that sheep? Because
nobody did they?
Nobody did. If not, we'll put you all out your misery.
We just put them out their misery.
We put them out your misery.
Obviously, as a sheep from Newhall, it's called Bacchus.
Bacchus. Very good. That's the kind of quality dad's joke that we are all big fans of. Anyway, thank you so much for your time. It's been wonderful. Some of the tasting notes were absolutely on fire tonight, and not to mention the food pairing suggestions. I'm off to go and get a lobster now.
With a lobster, brie, honey, truffle stuff.
Quite right too.
It's a new world of club sandwich.
Brilliant. We haven't got closing credits tonight because we've been dealing with broken bottles and things, but we will look forward to seeing you next time. If you're with us on the adventures, we are going to Sussex. Let's talk about Sussex, baby. And
then next month we're Northern Italy and Piedmont, where we went to. So thank you all so much. I hope you've enjoyed it. It was great to chat to you all and to share some cool wines. And we look forward to seeing you soon. Good night. Take care.